It's pretty remarkable that the Supreme Court is deliberating whether or not to prohibit sleeping outdoors. The matter carries significant weight right now given the economic challenges in the United States, wouldn't you agree? Which have led to a surge in homelessness, particularly in states with pronounced income disparities. I mean, the sight of individuals living on the streets or setting up camp near public buildings does disturb many. I get it. Demonstrators now have gathered outside the court to express their concern over this pivotal case. So a lot of people have been, like I said, expressing their concern over this case as it is an important case because this is saying they will lock you up if you're homeless for too long. And it originated in Grants Pass, Oregon, and where individuals were being charged $295 for sleeping outside, inciting outrage amongst those affected. One woman central to the legal dispute argues that as a homeless person, she has limited options and can't afford such penalties. Also, I see a lot of articles like this: homeless choose the street over shelter. The idea of homelessness is as a choice, to me, is unfounded, and I'm sure there's a lot of experts that would agree it's unfounded. It is a statement because there are some people that do decide they would rather be on the street. But mental illness is often a significant issue in this situation and plays a significant role, at least to me. And merely providing housing or a job doesn't really address the underlying issues. By penalizing those on the margins of society, we perpetuate injustice. It's crucial to acknowledge that homelessness is a multifaceted issue and it does demand compassion and comprehensive solutions rather than just a punitive action. Many experts are already weighing in on what they believe the Supreme Court is going to be deliberating. Obviously, it's the sleeping outdoors, which, like I said, calls for a compassionate solution. But the justices are expected to interpret the Eighth Amendment, is what they're saying, which is something I didn't even know, which is cruel and unusual punishment clause. And obviously, they're chiming in, right? They're saying, basically saying that excessive fees or excessive fines for somebody who maybe can't afford it, it's not necessary. It's like when you have a bail that is excessively high, as we see in many cases for people that they fear are going to flee. That's a little different than, placing bail on a first-time offender who never really did anything. So a lot of these people that are coming in and saying, I'm getting fined $295 and I'm homeless, is that excessive? I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to rule on that, but for me, it's almost like the government isn't interested in addressing homelessness at all. They churn out endless ideas and concepts offering simplistic solutions like tiny houses or improved encampments, but, if you do all of those things and you think that you're moving the needle, you really aren't. Especially when my philosophy in life is that you teach a man to fish, you don't just give them a freebie. Because a lot of people that are homeless, even if you offer them a job, some of these people aren't equipped mentally to even handle a job. A lot of them, have grown comfortable just being on the streets. Job training, for instance, when there are no jobs available. So they go through all this rigorous training and then they come out and then they don't get hired. That would lead them to be even more feeling despair. Instead of addressing the root causes and trying to figure out what causes people to get to that point where they just give up on life altogether, they create loopholes, right, that lead people into homelessness in the first place. The truth is the bureaucrats running our country seem indifferent to human rights. Their primary goal is self-preservation, enrichment, and they'll walk past the impoverished. And they won't even give it a second thought. Many of them in Washington, I saw someone post a YouTube video saying that, right outside of these beautiful buildings that these politicians work in, they walk outside and right around the corner is nothing but homelessness, and they see it every day and don't do anything about it. They would focus on their political ambitions and their lobbying groups, but they don't focus on the humans sitting right outside their building. Imagine if they offered better health, education, access to mental health instead of normalizing mental health issues and making it seem like, it's okay for you to call yourself a them, they, and all these nonsense that they create. I mean, think about that. If they went and actually did some research on what are the underlying obstacles for many of these people who are vagrant in our society. I think we could come to a solution. Okay, we can all agree that money is probably the number one reason why people end up homeless. I can, even if you are a person with mental health issues, if you were a person that has all sorts of addictions, still, money is 99.9% of why people end up on the street. You're not going to find a homeless person that has money in the bank that just chooses to be on the street. It's just not going to happen. So one of the major obstacles is eviction, in my opinion. Pushing struggling people out further into debt always creates more of a problem. And don't even get me into credit card companies and how much they put a financial burden on people with their high interest rates, pushing people further and further into debt, instead of offering pathways out and giving them a little leeway, little wiggle room. Like if you find yourself losing your job and you're on the brink of being homeless, this is where we as a society can step in. Besides, when people turn to drugs out of desperation and borders are open, right, which is facilitating the influx of drugs, that just worsens the problems for the people who are on the street because of drug addiction. Even efforts like distributing Narcan and establishing shoot-up centers, to me, fails to address the underlying issues, and they merely perpetuate the cycle of dependency on drugs, basically. I had seen these shoot-up centers when I visited, I won't say where, but it was eye-opening to me even. Other things that I've noticed that has also, for me, just been like, I don't know why they're doing this anymore. Instead of funneling money into companies promising solutions, reminiscent of Gavin Newsom's fleeting efforts in California, remember how he was able to get all the homeless off the street when Xi Jinping was visiting, and it was like, where did all the homeless go? It means they can do something, they just choose not to. I personally believe the kind of money that they're giving for homelessness is going into the hands of people doing fraudulent activities. Like they're saying, I'm a company, I'm coming in to help the homeless, and just give me the money and I'll turn, these housing into like livable places. And it's not going to be housing that's like actual properties that people would want to live in. It'll be like tent cities, right? Like little tent cities for them, affordable housing, right? And I'm thinking to myself, we've seen this happen and fail time and time again. Let's address the underlying issues. Let's prevent homelessness. That would be the number one thing for me, is to prevent it to begin with. And if it's an opioid issue, let's stop letting people over our borders bringing in drugs and getting people addicted to drugs. But have a great day. Remember to think for yourself.